So this cockatiel has just about 3 colors. It has yellow in the head, it has a little red orangish patch, and mostly the lower body is a soft gray or a dove gray kind of a body, which we'll be mixing with a little bit of brown and getting it brown and gray. So we'll first start with the yellow part of the head. It's a lemon yellow, a bright vibrant yellow. And just quickly paint in the beak as well. I'm just adding a little bit more color towards the edges, otherwise it's a nice pretty yellow. We'll just add a bit of yellow to the crown. That's it. I will add the little patch of orange here, just a little dot. That's it. I might just kind of scoop over it a little bit later, but for now we are starting with the body. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of the very diluted gray that I have and adding in short strokes. It's not going to be a very smooth body. There'll be dark patches where there are feathers texture, and add short strokes. Let the bit of yellow kind of bleed into the gray, and it's a very pale brownish gray. It's not like the blackish bluish gray that you would think. Just a bit more depth in a few places, especially the underbelly. Just add a few details in the foot, the claw. Keep adding a bit of strokes around the feather. Now this has become dark, okay? So I'm just going to be scooping it out with a clean brush. And just adding a few strokes for the feathers. Same thing this side. I'll add a little bit of the body structure, a bit of the depth in the feathers. So it's the whole watercolor is just about building up layers and layers and layers of color. Then you have the tail. A little bit more color here, just near the feet and the underbelly. Okay, so now we add some details. I'll take a thin brush and we'll add some details to the beak and the eye and a little bit more defined. It's kind of bled out. just a little bit. So we come back to the brown color that we used for the wings, and that's what we are going to be using for the beak as well. So the beak will be slightly hooked, and I'm going to be adding the same color, but I'll add a bit more details a little later. Just give a little bit of shading around the eyes and a little bit on the head, just some depth around it's too flat, okay, so just a little bit of depth around the top of the head, a little bit with the feathers of the crown. Again, these are the same shades that I have. I'm using the same shades. The little brownish gray that I've used here and the yellow mixed with it is what I'm using to give the details on the head. Okay, it's just pale. The more details I'm giving, it's mostly pale colors. And right, so more detail on the beak. So I'll wait for it to dry a little bit and then just add, it's still wet, black color for the eye. Again, thin brush so that you're able to give the details. Just a little around the eyes. Some little detail around the beak. So I have the thin brush with which I'm just giving a bit of further details, further layer, and that's what you keep doing in watercolors, is you just keep adding layers upon layers. Sorry about that. And you build in the depth. You don't add the dark colors right away. You just kind of gradually build in the depth. The tail needs a little bit more detailing, and that's what we're going to do. There you go. A little bit more on the feet. So there it is, okay. Now the beak is dried, I can give a little bit more depth here. So that's it. So we've made a little, what bird is it? Cockatiel. So we've made a little cockatiel for you, and I hope it was easy and not too difficult. Very, very basic colors we've used, shades of brown, grey and yellow. That's it, with a little rouge on the cheek, if I may say so. I hope you'll like it. So this little bird in the center is going to be a combination of red head, yellow body, and a black and white, we can say black and yellow wings, okay, wings and tail. So that's what we are going to be sticking with. We will first just to use the wet on wet technique and color the body as with clean water, okay, so till here, and take the yellow. Now the yellow is not going to be a lemon yellow, it's going to be cadmium yellow. So you have that deeper yellow color, yes, this color, and this is what we're going to be using to color the entire body except the red on the head. We add the color here, some more because I want a nice deep yellow. Always remember that watercolors tend to fade out when they dry. So if you've put a very bright color and you feel it's dark enough, it will just get a shade lighter once it dries. So you do need to get vibrant colors, but not immediately. Build up the layers. So I'm adding red in the top part of the head there, and I'm just going to extend the red part a little bit lower as well. Just mix it in with the yellow, and while it's still wet, so that you know the blending of the colors is done nicely. So I'll just clean my brush, take a clean brush, and just mix in the colors a little bit so that they are well blended, right? Just adding a few strokes just as a depth part of it, here and there. And while it is still wet, I want to add a bit of ochre in the lower body, just to give some, it's not going to be like completely flat yellow, it will have some shades. Just a little bit, so that the lower part of the body, the yellow part, gets a little dull. This part is nice and bright. And I'm just going to be adding a bit more color, red color on top, because I want the color, the red to be slightly deeper nearer the beak. It's going to fade out once it goes a little ahead, but it's nice and deep red near the beak and near the eye, and just fades out here, okay? That's how it's going to be. And now I'll take a slightly thinner brush and start with adding details in the wings. Now for that, you do need to add a bit of yellow first, because that's what's going to be between the black part. I'll just show you how it's going to be. Just add a little bit of yellow here, a little bit of yellow here, somewhere here, and we'll make this branch brown, so that's later. So I'm going to be adding a bit of black on because I want the black to kind of fade out into the yellow. It's not going to be like patchy and harsh. So this is going to be slightly blending into the yellow. So it's become a little dark. I'll just erase it. Just take a clean brush and just dip it in and smoothen the colors. It's going to get a little darker this side. Yes, and a little darker blackish color is what's going to be for the wings. Let's first make the outline, and So this part is still wet. Okay, so I just want, I wouldn't want it to kind of bleed so much, so I'll just kind of blend it in so that it becomes like a darker shadow, and then we'll wait for it to dry. In the meantime, I'll take a thin brush while this is drying. I'll take a thin brush and start working on the beak. So just to tell you all, a little bit of the shadow will be here as well. You know, the gray shadow that we wanted will be here. And I'm adding it because this part of the body is still wet. So it'll blend. We've got a little bit, just a touch of black here. Take a little bit of black, gray, diluted, and just add it to the beak. First layer is always gray, so that I know exactly where it is going to be, and we'll darken it once it dries. The eye will be black. So if you can see, I've just left a little tiny line around the eye that is white. And just adding a bit, bleeding a little bit from the beak. I think this is dry, right? So I can start off with adding details of the wing. Still kind of semi-wet, but dry enough for me to add details. So it's going to have some yellow stripes. Fill this in with black. A little darker black. And just keep adding the details. Darker black here as well. Black here. So I'll dilute the brush and just spread that black a little bit. There you go. Okay. And we will make, while this is drying, and just a few tiny little details are still left in the feathers, we'll just take burnt umber and just add very pale branch that this bird is sitting on. It's a burnt umber, okay, very pale watery burnt umber. Just add a little more depth to it. So we'll wait for this to dry, and I'll add the little details of the feet. Just a little details. There's not much of the feet that you can see here. It's all blurred, but it just indicates where the feet is going to be. And that's it. And maybe a little more detail with the some strokes, you know, the feather strokes that we can add here at the base of the body. Some little strokes that we can add here. But I like the way this is blended in the the neck. It's a very smooth transition. So that's it. Just a little bit more details I'll try here.